نتحدث إن شاء الله بالإنجليزية، وإن شئتم الترجمة العربية إن شاء الله هناك قناة للترجمة العربية. And there is also a French translation. Please, if you would like to have a translation from the back, please. Welcome to the launch of CILEcenter.org. This is an important milestone in our work with the center. We are a research center that's interested in research in ethics in a number of ways that you will hear about today, inshallah. The website is our portal to the online world, and it is a reflection of everything that we do in the online world. I would like to introduce Akhi Dr. Tariq Ramadan to speak about the center and its philosophy. And then I will speak a little bit about the website itself and how can you participate in the website, whether you are part of this audience or you are online. We welcome our online webcast visitors as well. And then we will go for the questions and answers on the presentations and the website. So Dr. Tariq Ramadan.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Yes, it's a quite important moment for us, launching the website, and you will understand through my presentation, inshallah, how much it's important for us, what we are trying to do through the center, but also with Dr. Jasser presentation and explanation of how our website is going to work, and in which way it's the way we want it to be. It's very interactive. You will understand how and why it's so important for us. Let me say something about the philosophy of the Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics, and when and how this idea started a few years ago. In fact, the starting point was through many different channels. First, a personal experience working for 25 years on fiqh and fiqh issues in the Muslim majority countries, but also in the West. I was reaching a limit, saying my focus on law, on fiqh, on Islamic law and jurisprudence, and this is the way I would translate fiqh in that very specific areas, made me feel that I was reaching a limit, that we have to question beyond the way we deal with the rules, the way we deal with the understanding of the reasons behind the rules, the context within which we have to implement the rules, and the objectives. So, and my main point was really to question the methodology. And in fact, inductively, it came from what I was experiencing with scholars, ulama, and fuqaha, when very often with dealing with the context, they were referring to new fatwa, and this is the real dynamic that we have, and no one can deny the fact that there is a dynamic that is promoted by the scholars. They come and they produce and they propose new legal opinions and legal vision about the context. But very often they were dealing with, okay, we are in a state where there is darura, it's imperative, so we deal with the context, we have no choice, so we need to find the right rule for that, and there is a necessity, haja, so we come with this, and very often we produce new legal opinions and legal perspectives, but based on the fact that the context is imposed onto us and we have to deal with it without getting too much in the complexity of the context we are dealing with in the Western countries, but also in Muslim majority countries, and especially when it comes to dealing with contemporary sciences. And at the same time, many other scholars were thinking about this, thinking about the methodology. And when I wrote a book called Radical Reform, and in this book there are many more questions than answers. And dealing with other scholars and thinking that the Madrasat al-Maqasid, the school of the objectives, is part of the answer, but mainly what we have to question is the methodology. We met with scholars, and this is where with Dr. Jasser and his own work, because he has been involved in all this field, and with a center that he had in the UK, with the books that he wrote, the link between thinking about the methodology, addressing new questions, and trying to deal with the contemporary challenges made it important for us to create the center, to think about the substance of the center, which is based on thinking about the methodology and also taking into account the objectives. Having said that, now, what is important, because many people understood, oh, the Islamic, the Research Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics, this is, you know, we are going to promote innovation, we are going to forget the Islamic tradition. And I want to be quite clear on this, because the philosophy of the center is, in fact, rooted in the Islamic tradition. And by saying it's rooted in the Islamic tradition, I mean three things that are essential. The first one, and this is clear in all what we are doing, is to take the texts seriously. Meaning our references when it comes to Islamic legislation and ethics, it's Al-Quran wa Sunnah. So we mean by this that we deal with verses, we deal with ahadith, we deal with references that are clear. Now, the fact that we are relying on the scriptural sources, it's essential. It means at the same time that even among scholars, even among the way we deal with texts, there is a room for interpretation when we deal with the texts. And for example, to take the texts seriously is to make the difference between al-thawabit, the things that are not going to change, wal-mutaghayyirat, the things that are going to change, and the text itself and the prophetic traditions themselves are telling us that we have to deal with the text in a wide and within a wide range of interpretations and methodology when it comes to the text. So to take the text seriously is something which is the starting point of the center. There is no way for us to say, okay, it's a modern, you know, a new thing, and it's only about the context. No, it's the texts are essential for us, and this is why it's rooted in the Islamic tradition. Saying it's rooted in the Islamic tradition, it also means that we are dealing with a legacy. We are not coming as if, you know, we read the text as if no one before us did it, and we are not respecting a turath and a tradition, scholars, through history, through centuries, and dealing with specific contexts. They produce things that we take seriously as well. So to be rooted in the Islamic tradition is to come back to the sources. For example, if you read the Dr. Jasser's book and Radical Reform, you will see we come back to all the traditions, what was done by al-Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, al-Shatibi, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. These are scholars who gave us so much in terms of methodology, thinking about the text, and the wide range of interpretations. Because if someone is saying, I come back to the Islamic tradition, the starting point of coming back to the Islamic tradition is to avoid thinking about one only opinion. There are interpretations. So the Islamic tradition is open to many interpretations. This was known by the Islamic school of law, al-madhahib. This is known. We reach in history up to 30 schools of law in the Islamic tradition between the Sunni and the Shia. So when we take this seriously, it means that we take seriously the diversity of this within this legacy. The Islamic tradition is based on many different interpretations with one condition. To take the text seriously and not to make something halal haram and something haram halal. This is it. This is the point. So this is where you can understand the connection between the two dimensions. But to take the Islamic tradition and to be rooted in the Islamic tradition means also something that we have to take into account that was not new, and it's not new that when we are talking about this, is from the very beginning, and even in the way Shafi'i started to think about al-usul, and before him Ja'far al-Sadiq, and the whole tradition of al-usuliyin is based on something which is important. They all took into account the contexts. They all took, and the Islamic tradition is not only the text, is to take seriously the context. First, maslahat al-nas. And it was then, if you come to some of the scholars, for example, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in an Rabb al-Alamin, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya, when he is saying a mufti can only be a mufti if he knows the situation of the people, means that you cannot just say the Islamic tradition is about text. The Islamic tradition is also about taking into account al-maslaha, maslahat al-nas, meaning the public interest. And by saying the public interest is something which is essential in our tradition. Is it's not only important to respect the rules, it's important to help the people feeling good with the rules. So it's the context has to be taken into account in anything that we deal. So it has to do with maslaha, it has to do with cultures, it has to do with al-urf, it has to do with the new scientific questions. And this is where we are so happy to celebrate the 9th and 10th and 11th century of the Islamic history. Why? Because the scholars were rooted in the tradition, rooted in the respect, or respecting the text, and at the same time dealing with the new scientific challenges, cultural challenges, and the challenges of the time. So by saying we are rooted in the Islamic tradition, we mean three things: the texts, the legacy of the scholars, and the context, meaning we take seriously the context, we take seriously the social realities, we take seriously the scientific knowledge, we take seriously any new question that has to do with an ethical necessity or an ethical interpretation or an ethical answer. Now, this is something which it's essential for us. It's the very philosophy of the center. Now, what do we mean by ethics? And this is something, once again, we chose in Arabic al-akhlaq, and al-akhlaq in Arabic is not exactly what ethics means in English or in French or in the languages and the European languages that we have. Now, when we come to this, what is important for us is we deal with rules, ahkam, and this is known in the field of fiqh, Islamic law and jurisprudence. Now, what we want to question here is something that is rooted in the legal Islamic tradition, that we want to emphasize this dimension. First is, what are the reasons behind the rules? This is one point. It's always there. Al-hikmah, al-illa, all this is part of, it's not new. The point is for us is not to come with something new, is to emphasize something old. If you understand my point. The philosophy of the sentence is, look, don't be obsessed only with the rules if you don't understand the reasons behind the rules. This is one. The second is the meaning of the rule. What is the meaning? And there is a meaning which is beyond the formalistic implementation of the rule. And the third is the objectives. So when you come to reasons, think about objectives and understand the meaning, there is something here which is what we can call from the Islamic perspective or from a philosophical perspective, but also a legal perspective, which is a philosophy of law, because the point is the philosophy of law is an applied Islamic ethics. So our understanding is how, in the contemporary, facing the contemporary challenges, we respect the rules, but we come with a philosophy of law that is based on what are the reasons, what is the meaning, and what are the objectives. And all this together, this interaction between the three dimensions, it's important here. And beyond this, we also want to take something which is part of the philosophical tradition, because ethics in the Islamic tradition, if we take the Turas, it's coming from the legal, from the fuqaha, but it's coming from two other types of scholars, the philosophers. And I know that in the Islamic tradition, we use, or we tend to think that philosophy, it's not part of us. That's wrong. And the philosophers came with something which is an important question about what is the role of reasons in producing ethical references. And, you know, if you go back to Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, he himself was, and sometimes he was very tough with some philosophers, but he was clear on the fact that our aql, our intellect, is producing and can produce an ethical reference. This is something which is part of what we are saying, is to come back to also what was produced by the Islamic thinkers and the Muslim thinkers, and not only, and this is why for us it's powerful, we can take from any rational philosophical traditions as long as it does not contradict our reference as Muslims. So this is where we take and we can discuss and even contradict sometimes what is coming from other philosophical tradition. And there is also something that we are questioning when it comes to the rules, which is coming from the Sufi tradition. And in fact, the people who were very much focusing on al-akhlaq as good behavior were very much coming from the spiritual tradition of Islam. Why? Because they are saying, be careful. It's all good to respect the laws and the legal framework. It's much more important to understand the relationship between the rules and your purification, your heart. If the rules are here, is to direct your mind, never to forget your heart. And this is also a tradition that we have to revive, this understanding that it's not only about an intellectual understanding, it's a spiritual commitment. So ethics is about all this. It's good behavior, it's spiritual commitment, and is implementing the law. And we want the center also to reconcile. In fact, if I had to translate and to use a word that could summarize my understanding of what the center is all about, is reconciliation. And reconciliation means also a very deep reform in the way we deal with the law, in the way we deal with spirituality. I don't like, and I think that we agree on this, that this spirituality which is you are with God far from life, that's not wrong. You are with God in the middle of your life, in everyday life, in the way you deal with your ethical understanding of the good behavior and respecting the people. So this is where ethics is all this together. Ethics, when we refer to this, is three things that we are asking when it comes to the rules, the meaning, the reasons, and the objectives. And then beyond this, the good behavior, when it comes to how do we deal with ourself, the people around us, with the society, with nature, with animals. All these are questions to be asked as to إنما بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق, which is the dimension that we are completing something which was before us, but the Prophet ﷺ came to complete this understanding of the good behavior when it comes to our life. So this is something which in our understanding it's important. The point that I wanted to add here is the way we are going to do this and the way we want to translate this in within the center. So through this understanding that we are promoting an Islamic applied ethics, what we want is to focus on the fields that we think are essential, are important in our contemporary life. And of course, they are not complete. It's not all the fields. It's much, even with the fields that we have now, and these fields are going to be presented by Dr. Jasser through the website, but talking about bioethics and medical sciences, talking about education, talking about environment, talking about psychology, talking about media, talking about arts, talking about politics, talking about food, talking about... These fields are there, and you will see them on the screen. But these fields are priority fields that we want to focus on in order to try to get the right understanding of what could be a contemporary Islamic applied ethics in these specific fields. And this is where we want to have a wide range of scholars and researchers in these fields. Now, These are the fields where we want to produce this contemporary Islamic ethics and to think about it, to come back to, once again, the text, to use what was produced by the scholars in the past and in the present, and at the same time to look at what is produced by people who might not be Muslims, but they are very, very accurate in the way they are proposing an ethical framework. And sometimes we find that in many fields, what is produced by people of other traditions, not Muslims, people, Christians and Jews and Buddhists and atheists even, sometimes on an ethical ground is much more sophisticated than what we think about. Not because we are not equipped, but the way we translate this into the ethical framework, into the ethical understanding and the ethical translation of what the rules are supposed to give us as an ethical teaching, it's not always done. So we gave lectures about Rabt, which is the link between the Islamic legislation and the ethical reference that we have to produce. So these are the fields. Now, what we want to do and the way we are going to work in concrete terms is we are trying to target three audiences. So the first is very much about the scholars, the ulama. And the position here, and this could be disputed, this could be a question, is to say the ulama, and you know how much the terminology, it's important. Sometimes we say the ulama are only the people who are dealing with the text, and the people who are dealing with the context are mutakhassisun, or khubara, they are specialists, is to put at the same level when it comes to ethics, when it comes to the meaning, the scholars of the text and the scholars of the context, ulama al-nusus wa ulama al-waqa, and to try to gather as much as possible and to get as much as possible out of them. So here we want to work at a very specific level with people who are specialized when they are dealing with the text or when they are dealing with a specific issue. So in this, it's, for example, to have seminars, and we will have 4 seminars per year. We are starting now with 3, and then we will try to get 4 per year. And these seminars are scholars who are coming and dealing with 2 questions and working in closed doors. This is not going to be advertised. We want them to focus on 2 questions, and 2 contemporary and sensitive questions in one field. For example, next January, inshallah, we'll have the first seminar on bioethics. And we have 2 questions. And we have scholars coming from the text. All the scholars of the text are, of course, Muslims. But the scholars of the context might be very much specialized and not Muslim. So we'll have not Muslims, people who are not Muslims, coming with their understanding of what could be, for example, because there is a theory of the principles in bioethics today and a secular approach. We want to discuss this, what the Muslim scholars could say about this and in which way this is universal or not. So 8 scholars coming together in a very specialized way, dealing with very specific questions in closed doors, and this is one level. So we want them at that level to work together. And what is new in this? What is new in this for us is to try, it's a start, we'll see if we can produce something new, is to question the methodology. And the methodology is not to have scholars of the text working together and working on a report that they are reading and their answers is to be challenged by people who are specialized in that field. In a session, together, to be questioned and to see the complexity. And sometimes the way you listen to people specialized in their field makes you change the way you read the texts and understand the complexity of the issue. So we want to try to push this because the situation is very complex today. And in many fields, we are not working at the level of complexity. The only field today where I see the Muslim scholars dealing with the complexity of the issues is the medical sciences. Because they are dealing with medical doctors, and the medical doctors, they know what the scholars don't know. So they can challenge them in the perception. So this is the methodology that we are trying to promote. And this will be the first. So we will have 4 seminars like this. And then what we want to do out of this is to take the papers, they are preparing papers, discussing the papers, and then we will publish this as part of the philosophy of the center. Very specialized papers on specific issues. So this is the first level. Now, it's not the only thing that we want to do. The second audience that we want to target are the students and the researchers. We want them to be involved, and in the fields, and this is where you will see in the website that we will have forum where we want researchers and specialized researchers dealing with one of the 11 fields. So this is where we want people to write papers, to ask questions, to deal with the issue in a way where students and lecturers and professors are dealing with the issue at the level which is not at the level of the scholars that are producing, vision and opinion, but deep to deal in a very specific way and in depth understanding of what are the contemporary issues. So we want this to be where the students are going to be involved. So this is why the website is very important for us, because we need the students, the researchers to be involved in the discussion, specialized discussion. And as I said, with the seminars, we will publish books and booklets and papers, and we want to publish as much as we can and to push the students to be part of the discussion. And students who are not only ulama or fuqaha or people who are dealing with the text, but in all the fields that we are mentioning here. And, by traveling around the world, I see so many competences, so many Muslims, men and women, who are specialized, but they just think in their field and not connected with the ethical ground and in which way this can be used in our tradition. So this is what we want to do. And we also want to reach out, and this is why, for example, every year we'll have, as we will have, inshallah, in March in Qatar, we'll have an international conference where we are dealing with issues, but not in a very specialized way, but in an open way. In fact, what is important for us is not only to get answers, is to get the right questions. This is essential. What are the questions that are sensitive and important in that field that the scholars should deal with in order sometimes to come with new responses, but also sometimes the questions are helping some scholars and helping us to change our mind about the way we understand the problem, the priorities that we have to follow, and so on. So this is where this is also something that we are dealing with. So this is an audience that we want to reach. And the last one, and this is why it's important for us to launch the website, is the ordinary people, Muslims and people of other faiths, not only Muslims. But we want this website to reach out. So it's for us a way where we want the Muslims to be connected, and all the people who are watching us now live on internet and new here in this room, it's very much to understand that we need you. Because at the end of the day, it's not only that we are not only dealing with the ulama and the fuqaha, we are not only dealing with students, we are dealing with ordinary Muslims that are that have some questions and can think and work on this field and ask the right questions and push us to come with questions and also to interact with us. So the website is the means through which we will try to reach ordinary Muslim. Why is it important? Because we have a problem of authority and knowledge. For example, myself, when I started writing Radical Reform and I was researching on medical sciences, when I saw what was done by the scholars in that field, I was just amazed to say, how come I was never taught about this? I was never in touch with all this. We have volumes, and what I heard from some of our colleagues who are working at Georgetown University on medical science, they say 60 volumes of fatwa produced by scholars dealing with medical doctors, and this we don't know. So the problem is that they are working, but they are not reaching out. And it's as if, for example, in the West, we have a fiqh council. The great majority of what they are doing in Europe is in Arabic. So there is a problem of translation, transmission, reaching out. So the center, one of its priorities is just to make it possible for us to reach out to people. And all what is done in the fields to be able to make it accessible for our friends and our the people who are working with us. And this is where the website, once again, it's important. The fifth thing that I wanted to say here is it's not a project that is for the West or for the East or for the Muslim majority countries. It's crossing the board. It's for Muslims living in Muslim majority countries as well as Muslims living in the West or elsewhere. So it's not a new project for coming from the West or only dealing with issues in the Muslim majority countries. It's very much crossing the board. And many of the issues, and this is why, for example, we will have our seminars here, but we also are asking some of the people who are working with us to have events, lectures, training session, and even one of the seminars will be in the UK, in Oxford. So we are trying here to reach out. So it's really something which is international, and meaning by this that we want to see what are some of the common, and we have common ethical challenges when it comes to the contemporary world. So the center is a bridge, and at the same, a bridge based on contemporary knowledge facing contemporary challenges in the Muslim majority countries as well as in the West. Last point, and this is my conclusion. I'm still in my time, is it right? Right? Okay, so yes, the thing that it's important just for us is to understand this philosophy, the philosophy of the center. And once again, I insist on the fact that it's very much, and we really want it to be rooted in the Islamic tradition with the three dimensions that I mentioned before, and to try here to connect the people as much as possible. We have a small team for the time being. It's the start. We started last year. We are trying now to prioritize, to go step by step, starting with the seminars. But it's very important for us, for any one of you who thinks that she or he can be instrumental and can help us with questions, with expertise, with knowledge of books and papers. All this, it's important. We want the website to be where we can find the text. You go for one field, we have bioethics, we find the text, we have papers, we have books. This is what we want. It has to be useful at that level for students to research, for thinkers to use this, and for ulama also to produce new things. This is what we want from the people who are listening to us and from you who are here today. And this is then the dynamic of the center based on these means. We also have, just to let you know, in the center, we are working, we'll have, people who are going to be in charge of, and researchers who are going to be in charge of every field in the future, in the coming years, inshallah. We'll have people working with us. For the time being, the team is very small. It's a very small team. And I want to take advantage of this situation to thank the people, Dr. Jasser, who is the deputy director, but also Qadar, who is working with us, Badir, who is working with us, Fatima, who is going to join us, Lolwa, who was with us and left for other perspectives. And also we'll have, inshallah, another brother, Shauki, who will come to join us. So we'll have still a small team. And in the future, what we want is to have someone, a researcher, who is going to be in charge of every field, to make it and to try to reach the highest level of expertise in every field, and then to reach out through the center. We also have a steering committee, and the people in the steering committee, almost 10 people, are in different countries, from Asia to Africa to the European countries, and they are writing papers, they are also organizing events, and we want this to be also the way we are present everywhere. It's not only us, it's not only the team. We have a steering committee helping us to get the vision, helping us to think about the priorities, being critical towards what we are doing. This is also what we need. So anything that you see here that it's not the right way or you think it might be improved, let us know. The critical thinking is the essence of our work, the constructive critical thinking. Not to sit down and to say, forget about it, that's not the way to do it, because I'm used to this kind of negative critical thinking. But the positive one is, and the constructive one is just to help us to improve what we are trying to do. And we are doing it with deep humility, but we understand that the center has ambitions. So humility and ambition is the way I think as Muslims relying on Allah, natawakkalu ala Allah, the way we rely on Allah is to be humble when it comes to what we can do, ambitious when it comes to what we want to achieve, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wallahu a'lam wa a'la wa ahkam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah khair, Akhi Dr. Tariq, for the outline of the philosophy of the center. And I would like to start from where Dr. Tariq ended, which is the humility and the ambition side. While he was talking about that, I remembered the Prophet Ibrahim, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when Allah sent the angel and told him, call people for pilgrimage to Mecca. That was right after building the Kaaba. So he said to the angel, how can I call people to pilgrimage, and I am only here with my son? So it was only him and his son and the desert. He told him, عليك النداء وعلينا البلاغ. You call and we will make your word reach out. Prophet Ibrahim did the adhan, or the call for pilgrimage. O people, Allah wants you to visit this holy place, and Allah will take my words to you. Today, thousands of years later, millions of people visit Mecca in order to do the pilgrimage that Prophet Ibrahim sallallahu alaihi wasallam called for. It's a humble call, but we have a great ambition with our call, because we believe that this world's problem is mainly an ethical problem. Whether we are talking about politics or economics, whether we're talking about the environment or the arts or education, any problem that the world is suffering from, our analysis of that problem is that there is a problem with the ethical understanding. Whether from Muslims or non-Muslims, it's for humanity. Ethics is something that humanity needs, really, in order for humanity to be a better humanity. And the Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics is trying to spread an Islamic ethics message, that's true, but the domain of that Islamic ethics message and the ambition of the center is wider even than the Islamic circle. It's actually for everybody. And Islam could contribute something in the ethical debate of today. And hopefully our center would take a role in this, in the contribution to the ethical debates and the ethical needs, the ethical answer for the problems that this world has. As Dr. Tariq said, I will go with you through okay. Yes. So this is the launch of our center now on the internet. As Dr. Tariq said, this is our first year, so we are still building our team and building our content and building our research. Yet this is the window that we have to the world for our research. If you navigate through this website, whoever you are, you will find yourself contributing, inshallah, to this mission of the center. Whether you are a scholar, as Dr. Tariq said, the three levels, the scholars, the practitioners, the professionals, and the general public who's interested in ethics. If you are a scholar, or if you are a professional / practitioner, or you are a person who's interested in ethics, somehow related to your life, one way or the other, your job and your life in general, you will find, inshallah, something on this website to learn from and also to contribute, inshallah. I will start with these areas of research. These are the 10 areas plus methodology that we decided to embark on in our work as a center. Economics, environment, medicine, bioethics, arts, gender studies, education, politics, food, psychology, and media. What we are aiming at here is, again, in the three levels. Number one, to produce very specialized research and highly specialized books in these fields. And number two is to start and encourage and host a debate on each of these fields, online as well as in our seminars and conferences. So for example, in economics, you find a forum, which is an online forum that you can participate in, essays, articles, like research articles, as well as recommended readings and external links. In each of the fields, we have the same areas here. We had a number of researchers, about 25 this year, part-time though, who were working with us on compiling these recommended readings for you, as well as writing essays and articles in the different fields. We asked them to start their essays and articles by tackling some important questions, as well as outlining the major problems in each of the fields, the major ethical problems in each of the fields here. As well as in some of the areas, we started to have forums in which we're asking questions. The forum that Dr. Tariq told you about on bioethics that's coming up, if I click on forum, is a scholarly forum in which scholars are answering these two questions. But we're also putting the two questions to the public because we want a discussion on all levels of scholarship for these questions. Question number one, are the four principles of bioethics as defined in the Western literature universal? And what are the Islamic principles in bioethics? Through brainstorming sessions that we had, we defined these two questions with the people who work in the bioethics field, that we need a number of principles that govern thinking, whether in the Islamic sense that we call ijtihad, or in the practicing sense that we call practicing, or the values that govern the practicing of bioethics. And we came up with these questions that scholars are writing. Actually, they already wrote papers and answers for the papers, and what we will do in January is to bring all the scholars who wrote papers on this and make them discuss in order to produce that volume that we are aiming at. But we're opening this now for you to participate in. Log in. We actually require for the forums for you to register in order for you to be part of the forum. And part of this registration is actually to upload your resume or your CV, because we would like for these forums to be at a certain level. This is not chatting. Chatting will have other forums where we chat, and we have a Twitter account, and we will have all of the chatting social media accounts as well for you to chat if you would like to chat about ethics. But if you would like to involve in a specialized discussion on ethics, then we would like you to introduce yourself and upload your resume just to show us that you have the expertise to involve in the discussion. And then please get into this discussion and discuss with the other discussants on the forum one of these two questions. We also have the arts forum actually also starting. And we have the two questions that will be asked in the seminar that we are organizing in Oxford University that Dr. Tariq talked about in April 2013. And these are the two questions that we decided. And now scholars are starting to write on this, and we would like for you as well to participate in this debate so that we can hold the discussions in a better way. What are the ethical limits on arts? And the other question, what is Islamic arts and what make arts Islamic? We work in methodology. So far, researchers in the center, as well as Dr. Tariq and myself, we work more or less in the methodology fields. But we leave it up to the specialized people in each of the disciplines to tell us what are the critical questions that have to be asked from an ethical perspective in these fields. And people who are specialized in arts suggested these two questions after a number of brainstorming sessions. What are the ethical limits on arts? So much is coming out these days on arts, and sometimes cartoons and movies and comedies. And what are the ethical limits? Are there ethical limits? We do believe that there are ethical limits. So there is a question before this question that we already answered, that there are ethical limits. But what are they? So that's number one. And the other very important question, we talk about Islamic economics and Islamic politics now and Islamic art, but we need to define what is it? What is Islamic art? What do we mean by that? Is it something that has to have verses from the Quran, references to verses from the Quran, or tradition of the Prophet ﷺ, or Islamic terms in order for it to be Islamic? Or is Islamic arts a wider? What makes art Islamic? And that is a simple question at the face of it, but it's actually a very difficult question to answer. And we would like for you, if you are interested in arts in any way and you would like to participate in this debate, that you take part in that. So far we worked on the areas of bioethics and arts, but the other areas, the question is, what are the questions that need to be asked? So we have those 11 fields. In the areas of bioethics and arts, we have the two questions that we will ask over the next 3 months or 4 months. But then we need questions to be able to ask in the other fields. What are the important questions in the area of food? One of our researchers, actually two of them, are working on the area of food, and they already have some questions to ask. One of them, to share some interesting thing with you, that they are saying, what are the ethics of slaughtering animals in Islam? Not just the hukum, because we know the hukum, the Islamic rule, that you say Bismillah, you take permission by saying in the name of Allah, and you slaughter the animal in a certain way. But what are the ethical issues related to that? For example, the researcher who is working on the area of food these months realized that a large part of the animals, a large number of the animals that come to this part of the world actually die on the way. And they die and they're thrown in the ocean or in the sea. And some companies, the statistics in some companies is about 50% of these lambs and goats, they die before they reach us. And then the way they are treated and the way they are slaughtered in front of everybody else, after seeing all of this, for me as a person who worked in fiqh, is un-Islamic, is unethical, you see. But we need to research this more. We need to tackle the issue not just in terms of the ta'abudiyat, not just in terms of the acts of worship, which is that you say Bismillah and you slaughter the animal in a certain way, but also the ethics, which is Islamic, pretty much the core of what Islam is about when you deal with animals. And when you deal with the question of consumption, and when you deal with the question of pollution, and so many questions and so many problems that we have in this world that are ethical problems. And we would like to tackle that, and we would like to contribute to the debate out there on these things from an Islamic point of view. The issues of gender studies, we did not call it women in Islam as it is normally, because we understand that not just the problems in the Islamic life is not just in women in Islam, but also men in Islam. And actually men in Islam even more than women in Islam, and call us feminists if you wish. But basically we would like to discuss the issues of gender studies, the issues of men and women in Islam, being men and women. And what are these issues? We have a forum here. If you have questions, if you go to any of these forums, ask the questions, and then we will start, inshallah, to direct our researchers and direct our attention as a center to these. One important area of research is methodology, or manhajiyya in Arabic, which is the area of the philosophy of the center. How can we link Islamic legislation and Islamic ethics? So far, Islamic ethics is what we call in ethics, virtue ethics. Courage and generosity and al-fada'il, in Arabic, just virtues. And Islamic legislation is pretty much a very systematic and rigid linguistic evidence, dilalat al-lafziyya and all of that. How can we link the linguistic evidence or dilalat al-lafziyya with dilalat al-akhlaqiyya, the moral evidence? This is a very important area that we are trying to work on as well, in order to bring ethics back to Islamic legislation and bring Islamic legislation back to ethics, really. And this is one of the things. If you click on resources, we have a number of essays so far, articles. We haven't produced any books yet, so you will see that CILE Books is under construction. And we haven't produced newsletters yet. Wait for these. Give us your email, inshallah, and wait for the newsletter. And surveys and polls and so forth. If you click on the media center, we already have a few videos starting to come up, and we already have a YouTube channel in which we are putting videos for you that are relevant to our center and to the ethical debate in general. This is a video on the launch of the center, and these are some of the lectures that we started already. We have a series of lectures, a monthly lecture series in Center of Islamic Legislation and Ethics. So far, 3 of them that we delivered here in Education City, and we will, inshallah, monthly deliver more. So we're starting to put our videos here on the media center. And forgot to mention in the beginning that actually this website is in 3 languages. Is in Arabic, English, and French. They are not identical sites because some of the material, some of the videos, for example, is only in Arabic and we haven't translated it yet. And if it is translated, you will find it in both sites. But otherwise, you will find it in the site of the center. So this is the Arabic website, Al-Manshurat wal-Fa'aliyat wal-Muntadayat, and some of the questions here as well. ما هو الفن الإسلامي وهكذا. And we have also the website en français, and you will find some of the material that is only in French and some of the material that is in Arabic, English, and French. So far, what we produced as a center, Dr. Tariq referred to our steering committee researchers and the articles they write. These articles are produced in the 3 languages, and you will find this here. So what we produce as a center, we produce in the 3 languages, but what we refer to is not always in the 3 languages. So this is what we have here on the French website. Again, if you click on any of these fields, then you will go to the different forums, the upcoming events. We have a calendar here, and We have our Twitter account. Please join us and how do you call it in the Twitter language? Follow us on that Twitter. We have a Google Plus. We have YouTube as well. Please subscribe to these. We have a poll here that we put out initially. Do you think research on ethics could contribute to a better future for humanity? Our answer is yes, and that's why we're doing this. But we want to take your opinion as well, whether this Islamic ethics endeavor that we are embarking on is something that humanity needs, not just Muslims. We believe that this is something that is quite important in today's world, and I'll end with the remark that I started with, that this could be a humble call, and we are trying to build our work gradually, but we have an ambition to contribute to every problem that we have as humanity. Our problems are becoming too many and too severe, too much corruption in politics, too much unethical economics, too much everything. I don't want to count all the fields and then give a kind of a negative view of the world. But yeah, we do have problems, ethical problems in each of these areas of research that we chose, and we would like to define not just what is Islamic politics and Islamic art and Islamic education and Islamic media and so forth, but also what is ethics in each of these fields. If you are in any of these levels that Dr. Tariq mentioned, whether you are a general practitioner, a professional who is interested in ethics, or you are a scholar or researcher or a student, please join our endeavor, be part of this through our forums and online forums that we have there. And thank you very much. It's now open for your questions and answers. Thank you very much. Yeah, please. Microphones. The gentleman. Please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, the question could have been in French, but because
والله يسألني بالعربية يا أخي جزاك الله خير.
شكرا.
عربياتك جيدة يا أخي سبستيان.
يعني تعريف الإثكس كان يعني باللغة الإنجليزية the meanings, reason and objectives يعني وراء الأحكام صح؟
جميل.
فهنا السؤال يعني ما هو موجود في هذا التعريف للإثكس الذي هو غير موجود في المقاصد؟ يعني قصدي وراء السؤال يعني لماذا أنتم تستخدمون مصطلحات يعني غير موجود في التراث الإسلامي مع أن يعني يوجد ما يكفينا في التراث الإسلامي حتى نعبر عن نفس المعنى. يعني في رأيي على الأقل لو يعني انظر إلى التعريف الذي ذكرته يعني سابقا. وهذا يعني دعني أكمل السؤال. أنا بعض الناس يعني في عند المسلمين أحيانا يتوقفون عند العناوين، فلو تريد أن تجمع الكل وتأتي بمصطلحات يجعل المبادرة عند بعض الناس كأنها يعني تقليد للغرب وما يشابه ذلك. السؤال يعني في هذا السياق.
جزاك الله خير. بارك الله فيك. This is a very interesting question that coming from one of our European colleagues saying, why do you choose the word ethics and not the Arabic words that we have in our Islamic history, which is al-maqasid or al-fiqh or al-hikmah or the purposes of the Islamic law or the understanding of jurisprudence. Why don't we use the word jurisprudence? You see, I have a problem even translating your question because the word ethics doesn't have an equivalent in the Arabic sense. If you say al-akhlaq, then your mind or my mind as an Arab, will go to al-fada'il, will go to the virtues, you know, courage and generosity and so on, not applied ethics. Applied ethics, to me, is fiqh. But I know, and I call Sharia ethics. And fiqh, of course, is the human understanding of the Sharia. But if you say that this is darasat fi Sharia, if we are doing research in Sharia, it will be very difficult to get the message across that we are actually working with ethics. And that is why we called it at-tashri' wal-akhlaq. Like, we are working with Sharia and akhlaq, both of which would make the word ethics, really. But ethics, akhi, is not just a Western concept, because now akhlaq al-mihna, or the ethics, the professional ethics, is something that everybody is looking for. And this has a lot to do with fiqh as well, but not in the traditional sense. In the traditional sense, when people talked about fiqh, they talked about courts, really, and everything that has to do with it, or the fiqh of the acts of worship, you know, how to pray and how to fast. But the fiqh of today, and Dr. Tariq gave an example of bioethics, is a fiqh that shall and ought to be applied to the real world. If you want to apply to the real world, and I'm speaking English, I have to call it ethics. If I speak Arabic, I will call it fiqh. I will not even call it maqasid. Maqasid is the higher understanding of fiqh, the purposes, the philosophy of fiqh. But fiqh is supposed to be about these things. This is fiqh in the modern sense. And if the fuqaha in the old times had divided the chapters into al-buyu' wal-qada' wal-jihad, you know, they divided the chapters into judgeship and jihad, armed struggle, in that particular terminology, and qada', judgeship, armed struggle, buyu', trade, tahara, cleanliness, and so forth. This is the old chapters. As you know, you studied fiqh. Today, the chapters of fiqh are divided differently. These are the chapters of fiqh today. They are economics and politics and education, and this is the real fiqh of today that we would like to tackle. So I hope this long answer answers some of the complexities of your question. Jazakallah khair. Any other comment, question, please?
Yes, thank you for establishing such a research center. Just I was wondering, what's the aim of, like, the objective, as you said, in the what we call maqasid al-sharia? The objective of establishing such a research center is to integrate Islamic legislation with the what we are living today, and to give an alternative to secularism, in which they try to separate religion from society. Is that one of the objectives of such a research center?
That is one of the objectives, true, but you're asking about the role of maqasid al-sharia?
No, like, for example, you said every time in Islam we have like maqasid al-sharia. Like, the objective of such research center is to, like, every time we say we don't have to separate religion and society, society. And many people call for secularism. Like, when you have such articles and research, and you bring both the Islamic, or scholars who they just written from Islamic perspective, and then the researcher who work in food, medicine, and I think your objective is to connect both of them, and then your objective to show the world that Islam is able to comprehend all sides and we can apply it, and such.
Jazakallah khair. Yeah, sure. Yeah, our objective is to connect religion and society, as you're saying.
So it's something alternative to secularism.
That's different from secularism. Is the separation
but okay. In one perspective, maybe.
Sure. Are you done? Okay. Secularism is the separation not of religion and society, of religion and the state. In fact, the church and the state, which is a very different story. We can discuss this under the ethics of politics. So secularism is a different story. But we are trying to connect religion and society, as you put it, is true. Islam is not supposed to be separate from the issues of economics and politics and education and psychology. Sometimes we take a few issues in economics related to trade and so on that are similar to the Turath or the history. And then we say that Islamic economics is to follow certain terminology, al-murabaha wal-muzara'a wal-musaqa and so forth. And this is, yes, we could have a new interpretation of Islamic ways of trade, but this is not everything about economics. There is ethics in economics. There is a big question of ethics in economics that need to be answered. And many scholars, for example, the last economic crisis, they believed that the issue was ethics. The cause of all of this was an ethical cause. It's not something in the economics, it's something in the practice of economics. And so forth with politics and all of that. The state is fine, but when the state becomes, as we see now in Syria or Israel, and these are states, but they are states that are unethical, as simple as that. And then if you bring ethics to politics, if you talk to these people, they will laugh at you if you tell them that ethics has something to do with politics, because they don't believe that ethics is linked to politics to start with. Politics is linked to means of violence in their perspective, or authority, or whatever they think. But in today's world, and especially with the changes that are happening, the Arab Spring, and the changes that are happening across the world, we think that ethics is necessary for the way forward. We really cannot imagine a new form of politics or a new form of economics or a new way of doing media or arts without ethics. And from the Islamic perspective, without Islamic ethics, but proper Islamic ethics, contemporary Islamic ethics, not to take the world back to the trade of the 10 centuries ago, and then we ask them to practice Islam, or the arts of 10 centuries ago, and then we ask them to practice Islam. No, we want today's arts, and today's economics, and today's medicine, but how to practice today's medicine with Islam. So Islamic medicine is not the medicine of 10 centuries ago, al-hijama and so forth. No, this is the medicine of Arabia of the time. But the medicine today has many, many questions that need to be asked from an ethical perspective. So I hope I'm making the mission of the center clear, inshallah. Yeah, please.
جزاكم الله ألف خير على هذه الصفحة وعلى هذه المحاضرة الرائعة.
بارك الله فيكم.
الله يبارك فيكم. سؤالين عندي، إيش الطرق اللي عندكم للوصول إلى الباحثين؟ هل هي عن طريق الفوريوم فقط أم هناك طرق أخرى للوصول إلى الباحثين؟ الشيء الآخر، هل سيتم عرض 20 مذهب كما قال الدكتور طارق، ولا ما هي المذاهب التي سيتم عرض آراء الفقهاء فيها؟ هل هي المذاهب الفقه الأربعة؟ هل سيتم إدخال المذاهب الشيعية مع المذاهب السنية؟ ما هي طريقة العرض أو المذاهب التي سيتم تداولها في الصفحة؟ وشكرا.
نعم جزاك الله خير. يعني تفهمين الإنجليزية أختي ولا؟
لا إنجليزيتي بيرفكت، بس استحيت أتكلم إنجليزي.
طيب خلاص أتحدث الإنجليزية إن شاء الله. In the ways of dealing with researchers other than the forums is basically to involve yourself in our conferences and in our public lectures and public seminars. We are offering these lectures and conferences in the name of the center, but we participate in a number of other forums as well. We're participating, for example, in the upcoming UN Environmental COP conference coming up here in Doha with a booth and with a seminar on ethics and environment. So involve yourself in our activities. Contact us if you are a researcher and you would like to propose an article for us to publish for you, or something you would like to say more than the forums. We will take it through the channels and we can publish it for you on the website. If it is something that we feel we need to transmit it on a wider scale, we will. So contact us, inshallah, and we will. In terms of the madhahib, well, I think that with all respect to the madhahib is a way of learning fiqh. but not to practice fiqh. I happen to attend a number of fiqh councils here and there, and I don't think that a faqih of today who is a proper faqih sticks to one madhab, except in a very few places where, everybody is doing something and the faqih is a local imam who's giving some fatwa. But if you're talking about that level of research, we're talking about fuqaha who went beyond the madhab, the historical madhab. I mean, the Hanafi and the Shafi'i and the Ja'fari and all of that. And they are able to do ijtihad, free ijtihad, ijtihad hur. And so far, the fuqaha who were involved in our seminars, and of course we will publish that. We don't want to announce them now, but we will publish, inshallah, and announce all their publications. We noticed in their papers that they don't stick to one madhab, even though they come from different backgrounds, Maliki and Shafi'i and Hanafi, but they don't stick to their Maliki madhab only. Because in a contemporary issue, once you start to deal with contemporary issues, it is very difficult to stick to a certain, I'll put it this way, historical tradition in the Islamic jurisprudence. Because the madhahib at the end are history. They are not today's fiqh. Today's fiqh is fiqh muqaran, more or less, something that is comparative jurisprudence. So no, we don't stick to any madhab and we don't belong to any of this. In our research, we are open to all opinions within the Islamic jurisprudence, inshallah. Yeah. Yes, تفضل. Oh, okay, in the back and then the front. Okay, the microphone. You have a microphone? Please, a microphone in the front. Yeah, تفضل أخي. Please. Go ahead, please.
خلاص. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. شكرا جزيلا دكتور جاسر. أولا لاختياركم هذا الموضوع يعني نشاطا لهذا المركز، لأن قضية الأخلاق من القضايا الحيوية بالنسبة للأمة الإسلامية، وأنا فعلا يعني سعيد جدا تأسيس مركز على هذه الفكرة. لكن لماذا لا نوسع دائرة نشاط المركز؟ لأن أنا أخشى أنه مصطلح التشريع الإسلامي أو Islamic legislation قد يؤدي إلى بعض الالتباس، ولنوسع دائرة النشاط. لماذا لا نقول Islamic ethics؟ لأن فعلا هذا ونحن يجب أن ننتقل أيضا من هذا المنطلق إلى مرحلة الأخلاق المؤسساتية، أخلاقية النظام. وأرى أن التوسيع دائرة المركز يعني يريحكم ويمنع من الالتباسات. فأنا شخصيا مثلا من المهتمين بأخلاقية الإعلانات التجارية، فهذا المجال خربان مع الأسف الشديد في العالم، في العالم بكل، وأخطر من المسلسلات في نظري. صحيح. ولذلك أرى أن يعني توسيع الدائرة والانتقال إلى الحلول المؤسساتية يكون يعني مركزا جذابا بالنسبة للعالم الإسلامي. وأنا أشكركم من زمان، أنا كان بودي أن أشكركم على هذه الأعمال الجبارة. بهذه المناسبة أقدم هذه الاقتراحات المتواضعة، وشكرا جزيلا. الله يوفقكم إن شاء الله.
بارك الله فيكم دكتور. بارك الله فيكم. جزاك الله خير. The question is about enlarging and widening the areas of research, and our dear professor is suggesting, for example, the ethics of advertising. That's an area of research that he thinks is an important area, affects millions of people. It's very true. It's very true that we need to widen that. So far, as Dr. Tariq said, we're a small team. As we grow, inshallah, we will widen our areas of ethics, and we will network with other people who are capable of these, inshallah, tackling other issues. Inshallah. جزاك الله خير دكتور. بارك الله فيكم. تفضل يا أخي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أولا أود أن أشكركم على جهودكم في هذا المركز، وأرجو أن يكون داعما لإعادة الحضارة الإسلامية من جديد. سؤالي، هل تشمل الأبحاث عندكم التحقيق في حوادث تاريخية أو في مواقف جعلت أو ولدت إشكالات كثيرة؟ مثلا أنا عملت الآن تحقيق في عمر السيدة عائشة يوم زواجها. وتعلمون هذا إشكال كبير أنها صحيح. كان عمرها 9 سنوات. فهل تشمل أبحاثكم هذه الدراسة أو هذه المواضيع؟
نعم، جزاكم الله خير. والله هذه موضوعات مهمة. I'll reply in English if you allow me. يعني the topics that you are suggesting, which are revisiting history in terms of Islam and some of the issues, and you mentioned, for example, the age of marriage for girls and the story of Aisha radiallahu anha, and Jazakallah khair, I will have to read this because I always believed that this story is something that is foreign to the Islamic understanding, but you know, fiqh sometimes takes different angles than the ethical angles, sometimes. So, Jazakallah khair. Of course, part of what we are doing is what's called the ta'sil. In fact, we have a project, Jazakallah khair for reminding me, and one of our researchers has been working on it, which is the ta'sil al-shar'i lil-akhlaq al-islamiyya. So he's revisiting, started with the Quran, and then he's revisiting the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in the authentic collections. And he is looking for the issues related to akhlaq, to ethics and virtues in the Islamic tradition of the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran, of course. And we are trying to revisit some of the interpretations of these ahadith and some of the tahqiq of some of the ahadith in terms of al-matn. We have a great deal of care was given to tahqiq al-sanad, to the authentication of the chains of narrators, but so little was given to the authentication of the content, or tahqiq al-matn, which is a work that you are doing. And I think the authentication of the content, and if you wish, the contextualization of the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ in his place and time and circumstances, and based on a deeper understanding of his politics and his economics, etc., is something that we work in, because this is part of our maqasid approach that we work in as a center. So revisiting history and contextualizing it in order to come up with a more ethical vision for today is something that's pretty much in the inshallah mission of the center. Jazakallah khair. Yeah. Send us your research, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Any other question, please? Tfaddal.
Dr. Jasser, do we have to talk about Islamic ethics in economics, in arts, in medicines, or do we have to talk about ethics in Islamic medicines, Islamic economics, or Islamic arts, as it was written in one of your pages?
Well, in one of the pages, it was Islamic economics.
Islamic arts. What is
exactly?
What is Islamic arts, or is there any limits to Islamic arts? Or
in the page where it's written Islamic arts, there is a question mark after Islamic arts. We have a philosophy of questioning this Islamic arts and Islamic medicine and Islamic banking, and we think that we are questioning what does it mean to say Islamic art, and isn't it enough to say that art could be Islamic if it has a number of conditions? But then art is art, and different philosophies and different schools and different ways. And this is a question of methodology again. There is a difference between saying Islamic education and education in Islam, or what can Islam contribute to education? These are two different questions. If you say Islamic education, then you are confining yourself to a certain framework, or Islamic economics, or Islamic food. Or then we are talking about Islamic food only, which is, how to, do halal, dhabiha, and all of that. But if you say food and Islam, then we can open the door of tackling the issues of consumerism and pollution and genetic engineering of our food and how it. But if you ask somebody who works with Islamic food or halal food, they will not see a problem with the genetic playing or messing up, if you wish, with our food. They will not see a problem with that. They will tell you, well, there is no ayah or hadith that says, O you who believe, do not change the genes in your food. Because the framework of thinking is looking at an ayah that deals with the issue right on, not an ayah that deals with the ethics of the issue. And therefore, you can deal with the issue properly. But the genetic modification of our food could cause a lot of problems. If you approach it this way, then you can tackle the issue. Islam could contribute then to the debates on food and bioethics and politics and so on. Islamic politics is the politics of the Islamic parties, the Jama'at al-Islamiyya, that we know this is Islamic politics. But politics and Islam means that politics, whoever the politician is, should have an ethical way of making decisions and an ethical philosophy behind their policy and politics. And therefore, we are bringing back Islam or Islamic ethics to the real issues, not the marginal, very specific Islamic, usually historically bound issues. So I hope this answers the question. So, yes, please. In the front, inshallah. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
One thing I'm missing here, will you also make research on the area of the youth, what they're challenging today? And it doesn't really matter if they grow up in the West or they grow up in an Islamic country, because for me personally, there's not really that Islamic country. Mm-hmm. Because like my children, they grew up in different countries, and it was easier for me to bring them up in the West, because we had been the others, you know, like we do this and that because we were Muslims. And then they came to an Islamic country, and oh, you can be Muslim and not praying, you can be Muslim and not doing this, you know. So I think, and they're really between all the chairs, you know. If they're very religious, they are sometimes even in an Islamic country out of, you know, the connection with the other people, you know. And they want to be cool, and, you know, it's a big challenge for young people nowadays.
Well, I agree with you that the challenge of the youth and challenge of education, this is part of our education proposal for research. But basically, the youth problems are major problems. And as you said, like whether you live in the West or the East or Islamic countries or Dar al-Islam or whatever you want to call it, then you could have also problems, even sometimes bigger problems. So this is, yes, it is something that we are concerned with. And Jazakallah khair, it has a lot to do with ethics, because oftentimes our youth think about Islam in terms of the acts of worship of Islam, to be like very specific things, not in terms of dealing ethically with the world. And therefore, you find a schism in the character between when they put the Islamic hat, they practice life in a certain way. And when they are out in the universal world, in the international world, especially if they are people who live in different countries and travel like that, they deal without their Islamic identity because they think that Islam has something to do with the mosque only or the Muslim community when we sit down and do all of the Islamic things. So, you know, they wear the hat literally and they put on this and they act Islamic. This schism and double life in a lot of our youth's lives is something that we need to tackle, because if they reach a balance in their character between the Islamic principles and contemporary life, so they live the contemporary life, they act with people, they deal, they learn, they trade, and so forth, but they also have their Islamic ethics as part of their life, then this would solve a lot of the problems. I agree with you. Jazakallah khair. Yes, تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
جزاكم الله خيرا دكتور جاسر، دكتور طارق، على هذا المجهود وهذا الإبداع الحقيقة. في قراءة لتاريخ الفقه الإسلامي يعني اعتبر يعني الأمة دخلت في مرحلة جمود من القرن الثامن تقريبا، واستمر إلى الآن تقريبا، يعني فيش تجديد. فأول شيء نعتبر أن هذه المحاولة هي محاولة للتجديد. كان الفقه الإسلامي يعني تقريبا ينقسم إلى قسمين: عبادات ومعاملات. والمعاملات طبعا كانت محصورة في البيوع والمسائل هذه. اليوم الحمد لله يعني توسع البحث في إطار التجديد في المجالات التي ذكرتموها، وهي بطبيعة الحال تقريبا يعني تعم كل مجالات الحياة اللي الإسلام أو المسلمون مطالبون أنهم يعني يفكرون و يعني يبحثون في هذه المجالات للإجابة على كل ما يهم يعني حياة المسلم. يعني أخلاق أو الفقه اللي يحتاج تجديد، خصوصا غياب الإسلام خلال قرن من الزمان، ويعني تطور الحياة في الفترة هذه كلها. يعني كثير من المجالات اللي الحقيقة يلزم فيها البحث. يعني أنا نقول مثال، يعني في الحروب الآن، يعني زمان كانت يعني أدوات و يعني الأدوات في الحروب وأخلاقيات المسلم والفقه في هالمسائل هذه، يعني بطبيعة الحال اليوم المسألة اختلفت. فأنا أقول كثير من المجالات بما فيها الجانب تاع العبادات. لو قلنا الفقه المقارن هو فقط اعتمد على الفقه المذاهب الأربع أو المذاهب العشرين فقط. فهل التجديد سيشمل هذا، يعني هذه المجالات التي نعم. جزاكم الله خيرا.
يا أخي هو تجديد الفقه يعني the renewal of fiqh. And by the way, this is our logo. If you haven't seen that before, it's the word تجديد. But you know the designers made it in a certain funny way. تجديد. So the renewal is our logo and our core. The تجديد of fiqh, in my view, has to do with two things: with the consideration of maqasid and akhlaq, with the consideration of the purposes, objectives, and the ethics behind the fiqh, and the consideration of al-waqi', the context. تغيير الفقه or تجديد الفقه is not new. It's something that we know in the Islamic fiqh. تغير الفتوى بتغير الزمان والمكان والأحوال والأشخاص والنيات والعوائد. You know, the change of fatwa with the change of place and time and circumstances and intents and all of that. So these things. Now, the circumstances that the fuqaha talked about, Dr. Tariq mentioned Ibn al-Qayyim. Ibn al-Qayyim talked about what's called fiqh al-waqi', the fiqh, the understanding of the reality of the people. This is how fiqh could do tajdeed. It's not in tajdeed al-Quran or tajdeed al-Sunnah. You know, we're not renewing the Quran or the Sunnah. The Sunnah is the Sunnah and the Quran is the Quran. But how to apply the Quran in today's context, as you mentioned some of the examples, how to apply it in the new context without trying to change the new context to become a historic context. And the historic context is gone, it's finished. But you have a reality now that is different. So the tajdeed has to do with the consideration of al-waqi'. And al-waqi' has to do with the consideration of al-maslaha. And al-maslaha, or the common good, has everything to do with al-akhlaq and al-maqasid, with the ethics and the purposes of the jurisprudence, the higher purposes. So that's how you can do tajdeed. Not just by doing fiqh al-muqaran. Fiqh al-muqaran, or the comparative jurisprudence, as he said, sticks only to comparing some of the schools. But here we're comparing everything, the contemporary opinions and the old opinions, the modernist opinions, and everybody who is trying to contribute something to this is part of our comparison when we approach, not in the comparative fiqh in the traditional sense. So, yeah. Okay, one final question. Doctor, once again.
إن شاء الله لا تعتبروني ثرثارا، لأن بسبب حماستي شجاعتي أحب يعني أشارك في هذه الندوة. سؤالي هل المركز يستهدف خلق عالم أخلاقي؟ يعني نحن أمام عولمة وأصبح العالم قرية صغيرة. هل نحن نستهدف أيضا أخلاقا على مستوى العالم وبالمشاركة بالتعاون مع الحركات الأخلاقية أخرى خارج العالم الإسلامي، في العالم الثالث، في أمريكا اللاتينية، في أوروبا وأمريكا وما إلى ذلك؟ أرى أننا بحاجة إلى سيادة الأخلاق من منطلقات مختلفة. وهل من أهداف المركز كذا رؤية؟
No. The question is about our international dimension, and do we have an agenda for that? It's very true that we do have an international dimension. Dr. Tariq mentioned a number of our activities happen in other countries other than Qatar and the UK, where we have our offices in Paris. We have our office there as well. But we, so far in 2012, we held functions, seminars, lectures, and so forth, and discussions with Muslims and non-Muslims in some 15 different countries so far in 2012. So yes, we do have an international dimension, and we would like to get engaged in a new world, as you put it, a world that considers ethics as something considered very seriously. And I think Islam could contribute to that. Islam, or the Islamic thought, to be more specific, should contribute to the world thought on ethics. And we have a lot of common ground when it comes to ethics between us and many people from other faiths and so on, beyond the issue of interfaith dialogue and interfaith this and comparing the different scripts and different stories. Beyond that, we would like to cooperate with people of other faiths, any system of faith, on the issues of ethics. This is something that we have on our agenda, inshallah, we're working towards as well, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much for coming and attending this launch at this time, and would like to thank our online visitors as well and online users. We're looking forward to basically partnership between us as a center and each of you on the areas of ethics. Please do contact us. Start with the forums and so on, and participate in our online forums, and contact us personally. We're here in the College of Islamic Studies. Our office is there. Please visit us. Feel free to contact us. If you have a project that you would like to cooperate with us on, please let us know. We're all open to building networks and partnerships with all of you. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.